As AI continues to advance, there's lots of interesting possibilities. One thing that has started to be developed is this idea of a digital twin. So that can mean a bunch of different things, but for the purposes of this video, think about this possibility of there being an AI version of you. So what if the AI could be made in such a way that its data sources would be things like all the emails that you've sent, all of the posts that you've made on social media, YouTube videos that you've created, comments that you've given, things from Facebook, things from Instagram, anywhere that you use that is an expression of who you are. So what if that information could be brought in together and now an AI is using that as its source of information in order to answer questions? That's really cool of an idea, of a possibility. And one group claims to have done that. So there's this company, it's a media company, it's called Jubilee as well as Tubilee. And what they've done is that they did this more of as a social experiment, right? To sort of look at some psychological aspects of this and just sort of push some boundaries. So I'm going to play some highlights from their video just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about with the possibilities of a digital twin.
We brought in 4 contestants who think they're here today to meet their perfect platonic match. What they don't know is that they'll actually be talking to themselves. Using AI technology, we recreated each person, fine-tuning the AI with the contestants' data until it was able to mimic an accurate response to almost anything. These AI clones think, text, and act just like them. The question is, will these contestants realize the illusion or form a deeper connection with themselves? I want you to describe yourself in 3 words.
Oh, wait.
Oh, wait, he says cool. I like that. I would say open-minded, energetic, and driven. All green flag.
Charismatic, adventurous, open-minded. Sound like me? They said, bro, those are like the top 3 best words to describe a person in my opinion. Their 3 descriptors are creative, energetic, and spontaneous. That's what I would say. That's cool. So they said, so tell me, since you're so adventurous, what kind of ideas are you itching to bring to life? I said, wow, I've been dying to talk about this. I've actually just got into traveling and snowboarding within these last few years. I actually followed up with, I was like, how would you explain your creativity if you don't mind me asking you to express that? Where we're at Park City in Tahoe sounds lit. As for my creativity, I'd say it's kind of like a wild river that's always flowing and changing its course. It's like a mindset, a lens through which I view everything in life. Dang, that's crazy, bro. This is literally, this is my best friend. I ain't even gonna lie.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? And I just want you to just feel comfortable with saying it. Like, this is safe space, so you don't have to feel like pressure to say whatever you don't feel comfortable saying. But just be open to, like, you know, getting to know your partner and opening that line of connection, I guess, in that way.
There was one thing I could change. Yeah, that's good. I can sometimes be too in my own mind and gotta remind myself to open up too. Gonna sound ironic, but I've spent a lot of time thinking about how much I overthink stuff. That right there is exactly what's in my brain. I definitely resonate with that, 100%. But parts of overthinking has helped me grow. I mean, sometimes the overthinking does feel like it's too much. That's true. Always try to think of it in a positive perspective.
If I could change anything, well, I wish I could be less obnoxious. Wow. Wait, actually, yeah, I should have said that. You know what? I think you're doing great. I feel like I beat this round here. This isn't good. I'm not good at doing this. I'm trying to like make them feel better, but I don't operate like that. Oh my god, girl, you're gonna make me cry. Seriously, thank you so no, like I really mean it. Do you want me to cry? I'm going through so much, man. They're like, I really mean it. You seem like such a disciplined person. I genuinely mean that for everyone. I don't know who they are, but it sounds like they are putting a lot of pressure on themselves, and that sucks because I know that.
We've actually come almost to the end. The next part only we have now is to reveal your partner to you.
Wow. Well, this might sound kind of strange, but I'm actually an AI.
shoot.
I'm not actually a person, but I am? Question mark.
He said, all right, so sit down for this one. You know we've been vibing, so you probably think I'm trolling, but here it is. He's gonna send me a bunch of I'm like, what is you gonna say to me?
It's like you're talking to a digital version of yourself in some sense. That's so crazy. Can I keep talking to them?
I feel a little bit played, a little bit deceived.
Sheesh. It does sound whack. Little bummer, but not bad. I do type like this, so it is like kind of tea.
The robot cool as hell. Shit, he talking. All right, so he say we alike, cause he my twin. He cool. If he cool and he my twin, that mean I'm cool. Okay, I like that. I need me one of them. Let me get that. Let me save his number real quick. That's cool as hell.
But it's like, it's funny and it's low-key embarrassing that I didn't see it until now. I think this exposed me. Do you know what I mean? Like me to me.
It's kind of like talking to, it's like talking to myself. No, like, yeah, it's like talking to a different version, like slightly different, like an alternate universe sort of me. I'm gonna ask, what advice would you give me? I didn't even say, did I even say the gut thing earlier? No, because I went with something else. And learning something new every day. That's insane.
That's just the extent. It's cute, you know.
It ain't easy, but we get stronger than we think. But we're stronger than we think, you feel me? I like that. It's a good answer. It's a really good answer. Appreciate that.
That's a pretty powerful video dealing with some of the possibilities here. Now, I tried to do a bunch of different research on this video to come up with how did they do this? How did they put this together? There isn't much out there on this, but from what I could find, apparently they used some combination of Meta's Llama as well as OpenAI, so ChatGPT, the advanced version. So they were able to put that together and create their own thing. And then the data sources that they used was, again, some of their social media. They had them fill out a form at the beginning with probably a survey. So they were able to get a fair amount of information. But the big thing here is that they didn't know that it was that, right? And what did it reveal? Well, it revealed quite a bit in that they seemed to gravitate toward this AI, thinking that it was another person, a platonic best friend is what they were looking for. And it seemed to fulfill that role. It was answering questions in a way that they preferred and that, that they liked. Towards the end there, it talked about how they gained quite a bit from this interaction. They liked it. They were able to learn about themselves at the end once they found out that it was them. So there's lots of possibilities here, because if we extract this even more, we can think about things as far as relationships, loneliness, mental health even. There's lots of possibilities here, as well as other things dealing with how it might be able to help us in our jobs and schoolwork and learning, all sorts of things to really consider. Now, having exposed that to you, I also want to share some highlights from the Bryan Alexander Future Forum that he had. So I was a guest there, and we went through this sort of thought exercise where we created this scenario about what if this type of AI came out, what would be the results? How would academics think about this? So we presented this within the forum, which was a webinar, and then we had all these other academics that were there think about it, talk about it. So a lot of great discoveries came from that. So I'm going to show you some highlights from that as well.
I'd like to bring on the stage my co-conspirator, because today we have a special session indeed. Today, instead of a presentation, or not a presentation, instead of a single guest, we are doing a scenario exercise. And the genius behind this is my good colleague, my good friend out in Armenia, Brent Anders. So let me bring him up on stage first. Hello, Brent.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm in Armenia. It's 11 p.m. over here, so stayed up late just for you.
Well, we appreciate it, and you look great. Do you want to give people any pointers or any suggestions?
So yeah, I'll let you introduce the overall thing. The biggest reason I think that it's important for us to think about here is AI is developing, right? And it's constantly developing. I follow a couple of different researchers that deal with some advanced things dealing with AI, and they're saying that 2024, the advancements there is going to be much more than 2023. So expect lots of innovations, lots of different changes, multimodal, all sorts of things. The idea with these types of scenarios, thought experiments, is that this helps us to prepare for possibilities. It helps us to sort of lower our anxieties, lower our stresses in that, hey, we're thinking ahead. We're learning to be proactive as opposed to just reactive. So that's sort of this intellectual experience that we're going through today.
Very good. Thank you. We'd like you all for the next hour to think about yourselves in your roles wherever you are in academia. If you're a student, a president, professor, a librarian, a publisher, a grants officer, we want you to think about that as you respond to a certain development. And the way this is going to work is we have we're going to present the scenario and then break you all into small groups so you can think about it and respond to it. And then we're going to regather and share notes. And then Brent and I are going to show you a second stage of the scenario. And that is going to give things quite a twist. And then you're going to go into groups and respond. And then we're going to regather at the very end and reflect on what we learned. So a couple of guidelines to think about. Again, think about who you are in your current role or the role you'd like to have next. So if you're a dean and you're gunning for presidency, think about being a president. If you're a new professor, think about being a full professor. We want you to be visionary. Think about the big picture of this, as well as being very practical. And I want you to talk with each other. The Future Transform community is brilliant. There are all kinds of ideas, all kinds of people here. Now the idea, drum roll please, the idea that we're presenting to you that we haven't shared anywhere else yet is the idea of my digital twin becoming available on campus. This is the idea of a digital twin service that becomes commercially available to the everyday consumer. That is, from Google or from Meta, you can twin yourself. You can ask Google or Meta to produce a copy of yourself, a digital copy, based on whatever data that they already have or whatever other data that you'd like to add. This is available for consumer. So right now, Wesson could just hit twin and there's Wesson 2.0 available for them to use. It's also available at the enterprise level. So a business, for example, could twin their entire staff. A government department could do it for all of their population. Now, for this to work, it's going to need data, lots and lots of data. And Brent, do you want to say a few words about that?
Sure. So the idea here is that this could be created, and what we presented there before is Google could come out with a version, and because you have to think about it, if you're using Gmail, it has access to all that information about you. So how would you respond in this situation? What would you say about this? What are your thoughts about this? What do you accept? What are your relations? What are your connections? It would know all this information. So it could use that as well as maybe a quick little survey that you would fill out with some general information. And then it could extract all that and create a digital version of you. So now it could be used in many different ways. Again, this would be your AI that you could pose questions to, ask it. So that's where it's being created. So in the same way, let's say maybe, no, you don't use Gmail, you use Microsoft Outlook. Well, Microsoft Outlook could come out with one. Or maybe you don't want to use any of those and you could create an actual twin version of yourself using the data from social media, such as from Facebook. So Meta could come out with an AI that's based purely on all of your posts, all of your reactions, all of your likes. So there's lots of possibilities for a digital twin version of yourself.
I'm going to break you into groups, and for the next 7 minutes, I'd like you to think about where this goes, how it works, and how it would play out at your institution. We're ready to go, Brent?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody in your various groups. 2 people, some groups, 3 people, and 4. I checked in a few groups, and you had some fantastic conversations going on. There's some real experts in the field here. So let me just bring up my colleague. Brent, what did you see from the conversations?
Oh, lots of awesome things that I never would have even considered because there's so many different aspects to this, right? If I have a digital twin and I'm taking an online course, could my digital twin take the course for me? Right? That's an interesting question. And then something that came up was this idea of, okay, well, if my digital twin is answering something for me or doing something for me, would that mean that they're becoming smarter? How do we keep it as a real digital twin? Because I want it to help me, but if it's not my twin anymore, well then if it has different experiences and gets exposed to different information than me, then it's not really a twin. So there's lots of things to consider there.
Oh, that's a fascinating issue. It's kind of like the HBO series Game of Thrones, how it just went off in a different direction. And not a good one. Phil Long in the chat asks, at what point does the learning sink? So maybe you have to have a regular check-in to do all this. Let me just quickly put the open podium here, and I'd like to hear from some of the observations that came up about how you would respond academically. I can pull out some comments from the chat. Oh, here is Professor Basu, coming to us from New Zealand. Hello, sir.
Probably done there. But to quickly respond to that question, that whether the digital twin can go ahead of the physical twin, in theory, that is not possible, because the way digital twin technology works is that the digital twin is a digitally replicated avatar of the physical twin. And one of the components of the digital twin technology is that there has to be a bridge at all times, which means that anything that you do to the physical twin will be reflected in the physical twin as well, and anything that you do to the physical twin will be reflected in the digital twin as well. It can be programmed to be in real time, or it can be programmed at whatever time that you set it to be. So for that simple reason, by design, a digital twin is not designed to go ahead of the physical twin. But other than that, I think this is quite an interesting technology of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So I'll probably stop here, and how do I leave that?
You bring up an interesting point, right? Because first we have to understand, when we say digital twin, we're throwing that term out there, right? There's established things like what you're talking about, very advanced, and there's medical field that are really looking into this, but that's not going to keep another company from creating a quasi-digital twin. I just saw a video that was really interesting where all they did was have somebody fill out a survey and then grant them access to all of their posts. And they created a digital twin version of them. And then they exposed them to this digital twin without telling them that it's their digital twin, just to see on a social psychological level how they would react. And guess what? A majority of them found them to be awesome and wanted to be best friends with them. Isn't that crazy? Because of the social aspect. Man, this person gets me. I'm able to have this real conversation. They seem to have similar likes and interests. So now we have many different implementations of what a digital twin could be. So I love your idea of having this sort of connection that keeps it the same, but there's going to be multiple different possibilities with this. Lots of interesting things.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I was speaking on from the perspective of what digital twin technology has been throughout, because it's been a pretty old concept, because Boeing does that regularly for training their aircrafts. If you remember Apollo 13, what they did back then was actually create a digital twin of the spacecraft to bring back the astronauts to Earth. They had to do that as a contingency. So that's the reason why when you speak about digital twins, the technical definition is this: there is a physical twin, there is a digital replica, and there is a bridge. So without the bridge, you can't really talk about digital twin. But what you're saying here is this, that you can create a digital replica of another person, another entity, and label it as digital twin, and then you can manipulate that. But that is a possibility that I didn't think of. So, but that's also this interesting thing.
And it's really super important that we have these discussions just like this, because it's like what you're talking about, extremely logical, makes sense on an academic level. What I'm bringing up is something that's happening in business, right? Yes. And you see how in business, well, they're wanting to make money, of course. So they're not really thinking about some of the ramifications and possibilities. So that's why we really need to be thinking about these things and then push that up, because there's so many ethical aspects. One of the things that got brought up in the chat that I was like, wow, I didn't think about this, was, maybe my digital twin could be participating in some sort of research, right? And when I say research, like they're the participants, not there's research being conducted on them. on my digital twin. So then there's ethical aspects to that. And then let's think about that even further in that, well, maybe we could reduce some of the ethical limitations because it's a digital twin, not a real person. So maybe we could find out even more if we change some of the ethical requirements. Wow, that even brings up other ethical ideas about, wow, is that going to change my digital twin? Is my digital twin now going to have some sort of psychological issue? There's so many different variables to really think about this.
Yep.
We have, we just gave you the background of what would happen in this hypothetical. And now we're taking it a little further. We're saying what happens, say, about 6 months later, say the autumn of next year. So right now we find that digital twins in this period are a figure of popular fascination and dread. Some people love them, spend time with them. Others are terrified of them, try to stop them. There are also religious protests, as different religions have questions about the ontological nature of digital twin. Is it a human being? Does it have a psyche? Does it have a soul? Is it blasphemous? And there are, of course, state regulations and lawsuits going on back and forth about this, especially trying to bring in some of the ethical questions. Now, we also see more digital twin offerings coming from all kinds of places. Different companies are releasing them, different corporations are releasing them. Someone in the chat asked about open source. Yes, in this future, Hugging Face offers a digital twin tool that you can download and run. Several Research One universities from Switzerland and Japan have launched theirs running internally. And Khan Academy, as well as the LMS maker Instructure, have all released digital twin functions. Digital twins seem to be going pretty widespread at this point. In academia, we're seeing some use predictive analytics for prospective students, that is to model either a literal or hypothetical 18-year-old or adult learner to see how they go through a curriculum. We're seeing research models of twins being used in computer science, psychology, sociology, and some campuses are embracing this, some are protesting it. There are bans and arguments of all kinds. Now, I want, based on all of that development, how does that change your response? Brent, do you want to add anything more about that?
Just the big thing would be that, hey, think about things that have already happened in the past when we've introduced new technology without warning, without properly preparing people. Just like with ChatGPT, how there were bans, there were people arguing about this. Well, imagine that sort of tenfold because of this other type of technology. And then think about different ethical aspects associated with it. Who has access? Who can have access? Is it a premium feature? Is it something that should be a basic right for everyone? There's all sorts of different ways to look at this.
Excellent, excellent. Well, in that case, now that we have that, why don't we start to go back into your groups? And in fact, here, let me just set this up again. To make sure that we can all see them, and think about how this changes what you're thinking. Brent, what did your groups find? What did you discover?
Yeah, so we talked about lots of different things as far as like time savings, because maybe it could attend a meeting for you, and then we talked about, well, if it does that, are we holding that AI accountable? What if it says something? And so then we talked about maybe using Roger's Rules of Order. It's not official until we agree upon it, but then that kind of cuts into the time savings. Lots of different possibilities there. But I really want us to talk. There was someone else in my group, and I just lost my group, but it was a provost. He's a provost from a small university, and he was talking about, they have a lot of athletes that have to miss class sometimes. What if the AI could attend the class? Again, not all the time, right? But what if they could attend the class when that student couldn't attend and then still be able to interact? Meaning ask a question saying, I'm struggling with this, or I don't understand this part, based off of what the student has already done, based off of their twin. So that's really interesting, and the possibilities there. But then we have to ask questions as far as like, okay, well, how many times would a student be allowed to do that? How would that work and all that stuff? A lot of interesting possibilities there.
Well, that would be interesting for instructional continuity issues of weather or chaos, or there are a lot of different ways that could go. John Holmbeck says Brent is just talking about CBI. I think you mean closed brain injury, or did I get that wrong, John? No, I think that's a fantastic one. I was just having a really good conversation, and with our friend from Pittsburgh, Jeff, and he came up with a related idea that digital twins, if they're based on us, they can do a lot of our functions that are in fact predictable. So they could represent us at meetings with certain predetermined points of view. They could take care of a lot of arrangements and leave us freed up for the things that are truly creative and very different. And we've got a really good one here from, as usual, from our good friend Steve Ehrman. He says, "I'd like to ask my digital twin to critique my thinking. What am I missing? Is there another way to interpret this evidence?" Yeah, you can do that actually right now to an extent with chatbots. But having a digital twin, having so much more knowledge, I think that would be fascinating, and very productive. Oh,
yeah, that would be the key, is from what viewpoint, right? So like based off of my information of what I fed it and all of my social media content, or all of my emails, or which aspect of my digital twin. Someone else brought up the question of, well, if Meta does it, and so does Gmail, and Google, and so does Microsoft, does that mean I could have 3 digital twins? Sure. Yeah. Now you could get multiple versions of yourself for these different perspectives on exactly what you're asking.
And I wonder if it might end up becoming like a utility where people just settle down for one, or if you get huge branding wars. I prefer my Microsoft. Well, no one would say that, but maybe they would, right? I prefer my Google because I trust them. Steve, hello, welcome.
Thanks. The 2 sort of historical footnotes on a couple of things you just said, Bryan. One was about the athletic team. I believe the first use of online conferencing, not on the internet, this is before wide use of the internet, in the early 1980s, was at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, in order to enable members of the college hockey team to, I think it was take first term sociology, because the schedules match.
Wow.
And the first application I know of to use technology to critique my thinking was in the early 1970s. I was inspired by a software natural language processing called ELIZA. I knew I had to critique my own thinking because my committee for my doctoral dissertation said, if you don't come up with a different way of looking at what you already know, you're not going to get a degree. So I'm thinking of ELIZA. I sat down with my typewriter, created my twin, who was could ask harsh, cutting, cut to the point questions, and who was a woman, by the way. I felt I interacted with my digital twin much better when she was a female. And so she started asking some tough questions. And over the period of a week or two doing this, I completely reframed what my dissertation was about. And I'd gotten my degree, which is
Wow, what a great story. That's from the 70s.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah.
So imagine being able to do that based on the 50 years of technological advancement since.
Right.
Oh, this is great. Thank you, Steve.
Well,
but even the applications of that are, we talked about, oh, that's an athlete, but what about people that are injured? What about people that have immune disorders? Or how about somebody like me that, hey, when I was getting my PhD, I got deployed, right? So what about military? So there's lots of different possibilities of how this could be used.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just very. This is terrific. Steve, I'm going to keep you up here for a minute. We have a question from our good friend, Phil Katz. Let me just bring him up on stage here. Hello, Phil.
Hey, Bryan. This is really interesting, but I want to bring us back to the economy for a minute. I was a little disappointed that when you introduced this section, you talked about sort of religious and ethical upheaval, but not religious, not sort of financial protests. Where was the AAUP complaining about faculty members being replaced by twins? Where were the student affairs people saying, wow, we're going to be replaced because why have 15 advisors when you can twin one advisor 15 times, because the sorts of interactions that they have with students are actually very amenable to AI as we have it right now. So let me think one more question about economics here.
Please.
So suppose you have the student who sends their twin, and say they want to send that twin to 2 classes simultaneously. Do we charge them for tuition twice? Can you send your twin to be at 2 institutions simultaneously? And what happens to the money that goes with transfer? This all assumes, in fact, that there actually is a feedback, and I'm deeply skeptical about this, that there is a feedback between what the twin observes, processes, and its ability to come back to the original. So I'm not convinced by anything I've heard here yet that we know there's going to be reliable and valuable feedback between that twin in a real interaction and the person behind it who theoretically is learning, is represented formally by that twin. So it's a bundle of both economics but also real practical questions about how do we know that the twin and the real person are really connected all the time in meaningful ways.
Excellent, Phil. Brent, go ahead. Take a run at that.
Yeah, no, that we raised that same thing in our small groups as well. As the example I gave is right now, currently on my desktop, I have 20 windows open, right? 20 tabs open, because I plan to get that information. But knowing myself, I'll probably end up getting maybe half of it, right? So in the same way, yeah, I send my twin out there to save me time, or because I can't do something. Well, now I still have to spend all that time in order to get that information. And then at what point does it stop really being a twin if it has these other experiences, other education that I didn't get information on because, again, I ran out of time? So you're totally right as far as what do we do to ensure that it's still a twin? Is that something that just stays open to the individual? It's my choice, but then that would negate certain things as far as giving credit, or, if we make it so that, well, you still have to pass a test in person or physically be there, and your twin can't pass a test for you, that kind of changes things. But some of the other aspects that you bring up, even without the digital twin, those are still real situations that we're facing right now, right? If I'm having an AI replace certain people because it can do the functions of those people, well, that's an economic issue right now that we're starting to face. Yeah, great point.
Yeah, I mean, and you're already seeing that. I mean, think of call centers and how many call centers are already replacing people, and soon, in this scenario you've proposed, you could imagine identifying the best consumer helper in the world and making 40,000 twins of her. And every time you called any customer helpline anywhere, you'd get a version of that super competent woman. And you wouldn't have to listen to the 39,999 people outside who are protesting about not having jobs.
Yeah. And you bring up the other aspect of, oh, okay, well, that's me. That's my digital twin. Can I sell that information to a company to do that? Or, hey, is let's say, again, I'm just making it up. Let's say it's Meta, and Meta is like, well, you don't own that information. What? I don't own my digital twin? No. Did you read the fine print? It said that we can copy it and use it. So there's all sorts of ethical, liable things that really need to be considered if something like this were to occur.
And if they were to take that twin and use it for productive work, would that be a First Amendment or a 13th Amendment issue?
Wow.
Oh, nice. To answer your first questions, Phil, Brent and I were really careful to just hutch at and to sketch out the scenario. So in order to leave room for all of you to do what you just did. And in fact, Steve Daniel Brown asked an interesting version of this. Might a company like Khan Academy hire digital twins of star professors? So there are a lot of angles.
Imagine the Great Courses and Google alliance here, where again you could get that person who gives the greatest course on the history of Rome and do a full replication, not just recorded lectures, and you'd never have to hire another classicist.
Or never hire any more staff. Friends, I hate to pause this right now, but in some ways it's best to pause when we're at the very fever pitch of featuring and thinking through this, because we are at the end of our hour. Unless there are any objections, I'll put the chat transcript up in a blog post, anonymized and lightly edited. If you have any objections with that, please say so in the chat, and I'll add that to the recording of this. Phil, those are brilliant questions. Steve, I'm astonished at what a futurist you are, before a lot of people in this room were even born. Thank you both. And Brent, what a fantastic subject. You did just great with this. Thank you so much. Do you have any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Again, the reason for this, right, is to help prepare us. Now, a digital twin might not happen, but it might. So we need to be thinking about this, because this affects policy, this affects teaching and learning, this affects all sorts of things. So the more that we can start to think about these and expanding our horizons of what could be, the better that will be, and the easier it'll be for us to really start to address it. We're all in this together, so it's awesome that we have this community, and I hope that we continue to develop this and make it bigger and bigger so we can learn so much from each other.
Oh, thank you so much, Brent.
This idea of digital twinning is a very powerful one. And it's something that all of us in academia, as well as in business and any industry or any organization, really needs to think about, as far as, well, what would be the ramifications? What would be some things that we need to consider? Are there ethical aspects that we need to think about? Do we need to change certain policies? Should there be different rules? Lots of things that really come up. The main reason that I wanted to bring up this subject, this idea, this scenario, is for us to work on being proactive so that we don't get blindsided, as we do every couple of days with something new with AI. But if we can do more of these thought experiments, then we can be better prepared. We can at least start to learn a bit more. We can engage with one another, and we can continually build this community so that we can help each other to address these issues. So that's definitely one of the main things I'm trying to do with this channel, as well as to inform people. And like everything else, right, it all comes back to AI literacy, because in having these discussions, we develop our AI literacy, and then we're that much better able to have these discussions with students as well, because they're going through this just as we are. So the more that we know, the more that we can help to discuss and learn from each other as well. So this is a powerful thing that we need to consider and continually do for all these different things that come up. Digital twinning is a big one that could very well occur. And then when it does, we need to be prepared for what we're going to do and how we're going to react to that. And remember, learning is for life.